So this is a story about time, where everyone gets 12 hours, 12 full hours, a full turn of the clock, before that clock stops, and it's your life. My father was a complete killer. A killer to his family, to love itself, and to my mother and sister and me, and to the brothers you might know, maybe as members of the community, or even your own blood-born parents. But I'm telling you this story with every right to speak out and to tell it all true. Because from the ages before I was even born to 5 years old, my life was a lived nightmare. No, not some fabrication. No, I didn't wake up from a nightmare. The lived reality was the nightmare. And this was a crime against me that stemmed from my own father's displacement of a deranged lunatic against his own greater judgment. And in the Lord's eyes, marriage vows are forever. And into the heavens, and into eternity. You do not have the right to remarry. Sure, there's forgiveness of sins. Unknowingly being made a victim of unwitting circumstances. But this was a crime. The crime of sedation and premeditation. And so, my story isn't about revenge, but rather, I was taking it into an art form, because it's about that nightmare, the lived one, day in and day out, until those days turned into years. A total takeover, an annihilation of my own better judgment and sound mind. All psychological torture, spiritual warfare attacks that were placed against me even before I was born. And before I was able to even speak. Mere utterances of words, a simple nightmare that was somehow supposed to suggest to others that I had a mental health crisis, nothing more than a learning disability or a speech impediment. But it wasn't that. It was worse. In the recent many years, it was about taking my digital footprint, tracking me, hijacking my life through controlled narratives of so-called friends, lovers, and even whole faked atmospheres. A full Game of Thrones, full scope control through betrayal, manipulation, and coercive events to carry out that plan of strategy. were my own blood-born brothers suggesting that I'm creating these problems where, on the contrary to that narrative, it's been me being exposed and even threatened of my life covertly by these very strategies in order to carry my life into completion, even unwittingly to myself, as these poisons will do to someone, where you can't even tell that they are trying to take you out. Full measures to do, I might so add. So this is Minutes to Midnight. The whole game of life, to enjoy with the living before you are gone. And that's all that's been given anybody. But it is supposed to be treated like a gift, as precious time together, and fragile as it may be. The full circle of that life, before the final draw, and we are gone. While most people think that we have time to live and laugh, enjoy family with loved ones, and get to work, play, and feel out for those precious moments as blessings, the true gift that they are. Well, I didn't get that same game as the rest, when from the beginning of time, the hours of that clock weren't even of my own. We're in the 0 hour of my life. God was just forming me. In the womb, I was being threatened through my mom's belly. My dad wanted me dead, so he threatened to hit her with the car, as hitting her was not only to hurt her, but to take me out. He did not want me. He did not want me alive at all. Much like the demonic possessed travel for the sake of money, or for spineless ways of being spirit inactivated. But jealousy, envy, or simply wanting to cause more strife, and not to be seen by others for who they truly are. Murderers and thee alike. From such a young age, I was already being predetermined in this warfare against me and my soul, shaving minutes off the whole hours of me, fighting for reason. Reason to see, or be able to see to reason itself, let alone breathe down to the cellular level, feeling like I was going to die at young ages, even 5 years old, because of events like these. And all of the rest of your stay then becomes a blur. You don't have ability to better judgment, nor do you have the agility of your own mind to know the difference in any type of organic way. 12 minutes here, 25 minutes there. Doesn't matter what they shave off, but there they were being shaved off. And before you know it, full scope of hours gets knocked out of your life, like it was some debt to be collected, before I even learned how to speak at all. What words do I even use? Or what words do I even have in my arsenal to be able to fight this, let alone being able to speak at all? As I thought, and in that mind's frame of reference, My mind, I was thoroughly feeling fucked. Maybe I knew my name, but I probably still haven't even learned how to spell it yet. It wasn't a stone I tripped on and fell by gravity, no. It was a full-on unconscious level of taking me down. A hand in on the procedure. Up my spine, up my back, and down, pressed firm, always down. No, you do not get up and speak. You do not get to get up. No, you do not get to speak or to reason through what they had done. No. So by the time I caught on to that full scale of warfare against me, covertly, I was already being almost thoroughly murdered without even being aware it was all a calculated poisoning. Until roughly 37 years old, and that arsenic, I thought, later in life I learned it was at age 43. As before, I just thought I was being poisoned, and I needed to get away. That's how damn dumb this stuff makes you. Not mere days feeling shaved off of your time, but full-on hours, being cut down to the bone like scraps on some chopping block, or these butchers' tables. And on the prior days, you still can't reason through the full scope of war that's being played out here. So let's take it back to ages 5, 6, 7 years old, where at times I couldn't have even known I had a name at all. I am Matthew Murden. I would respect it in my head, but I couldn't even figure out what that even meant. Could you imagine? Knowing your name, but not knowing how to reason with the thing of your name itself. I didn't know the poison had a full pedigree. My father, brothers, and the later in life, proxy-made friends, and even proxy-made lovers, all allies to a full-scale attack on my mind and character, as if I even knew what that meant. At one point, I wanted to somehow come up with my own language and learn how to speak in code. But I felt silly. I tried to speak in code with my sister. She played along, but she probably just thought I was stupid. And my dad was just sitting across the street at one point on our way back home from the store, literally stalking us. So, Pig Latin wasn't something to me at that time. I was just wishing that I could speak what I felt inside of my heart, what I couldn't reason through to speak. But there was always attacks waiting, stalking, ready to attack me or attach themselves to my story. Like Danny Heinrich, the guy that kidnapped Jacob Wetterling, how he leapt at me to kidnap me. And this was the third time of the kidnappings that he tried to get me, and he would have got me had I not thrown myself down to the ground, knocking the wind out of myself, to then roll underneath the car door, the truck door, and run like hell. Yet all of these attacks were set in stages, all smiles and friendly 1 minute, to full-blown stages of attack at others, gaslight, manipulate, show fake love, withdraw. Events all rehearsed. Remember to smile, isolate, then act out of love again and withdraw. Then they want to call it depression, anxiety, point their fingers and tell everyone it's just Matt stuff. It's just Matt's. Throw it out. And while there was something wrong, there was really something wrong. But others would just tell you, there's nothing wrong with you. Just learn to forgive and accept them for who they are. Remember, they were abused too. But after a while, you are just done with the gaslighting. You know how you deserve to be treated, and it wasn't through these malicious and meticulous crafts of them manipulating circumstances over you on repeat. You just wanted to run away. So sometimes I did. For short times I would sleep under bridges or find places to go to get peace. Because that peace for me was not at home and not even in the likeness of others. That others I could see finding peace within their own relationships, their own friendships, their own families. And by that time, I was 43. Full-blown hours had been cut off. First was in halves, and then in quarters. And now, who knows, minutes left to midnight, or without these abuses, I might still have a whole half of a life yet to live. Thoroughly lived. Because that's what I personally wanted to do, is get to live my own life. A real life. You know, find peace. And hopefully have a real wife. Someone that cared about me indiscriminately so. They thoroughly messed up every aspect of my life. Not just the time taken away by covert psychological and emotional warfare, the poisoning, and making sure that I was within proximity of their proxy warfare. And within these proxy relationships, but they messed up every dollar that I've ever spent. Not just on my home, but my health. And even the loved ones that at one point or another, I was led to believe that I had a support system. But no, they messed up my home life, my work life, and my character was and is assassinated. It's a whole different array of how I have been forced to live like, as my resources get cut. From my financial life being depleted, to my social life being cut. It's murder of my mind, and it's killing me inside and out, and it shows on my face, at least to myself anyways. I couldn't see why the police didn't care about the circumstances. I couldn't see why the communities around me aren't here for me. And even how the medical community can't see beyond to it, as well as them just further gaslighting me with the mental health scenarios, overlooking anything that has to do with the physical body. As though they were trying to make it as though everything was in my mind, when it's all very physical, being completely left out of yourself, and the physical body itself being left out of the equation as to why you're there in the first place. So while they are all clutched tight on their precious time, and and their hours of an organic life to be lived however they want to live it. They all took mine away from me within a surgical precision. If we all have the availability, per se, to live that 5 to 6 hours left to midnight in our lives, they didn't only want me down to 10 minutes to midnight or less. They wanted me to zero, flatlined, and isolated by craft. So when the 12 or 10 minutes wasn't enough for them to stop messing with my life, stop messing with my name like that, they did almost get me taken out. Anyone else would have flatlined by now, but I personally felt it down to what I felt like was literally less than minutes left at that point after a cold and calculated attack, a covert attack with chemical that I believe was a cyanide attack. And it was a cold and calculated precision based on these murderers, even by proxy, to kill me and to erase me, so that no one had to see who they were. This would have made it to where nobody would have known the truth at all. Not even my family, the ones who would still care about me, my nieces, my nephews, to never know who I truly was and what I had been going through the entire time. They would even have the thought that I was undergoing anything less than a mental health crisis alone, but that's not what it was. But it was exactly what I'm saying it was and is. It was a poison, a murder by poison and total identity theft for erasure, nothing less. And in fact, it was more, a whole messload more. Life insurance policies being taken out with precision strikes to be met. They were fraudulently using my name within deadlines of their whole plan to be met. The deed of my home and making money off of the equity of my home while killing me and working to kill me and almost leading me to die. And their actions strategic, met with precision, all to be signed or forged in the fraudulent ways and kept within silences of the identity erasure and theft that it was. This was a total takeover of my life, and they performed it with ease. And all at the cost of me, leading me to my final breath, to create by proxy my final death day, in which they almost got. Then even telling me, haven't I made it far enough? As in, far enough in life? No, brother. No, I haven't. I haven't even been able to unpack my life yet, 44 years old. I had to love myself. For my brothers, no, they didn't love me. They just purported that they did. But every time I tried to crawl back into my old life and make a way to get out of the things that at times I couldn't see, the covert warfare that was being placed over me, it was all set to draw me back. Planned, strategically, set up for a comeback that I had been trying to mount for years on end. But now, I'm so left in isolation and solitude. I'm withdrawn on because it's too painful for people to want to look at. And no, not even those who actually still have love for me can see the real need. The need for those hugs, the need for their prayers, the need for their laying of hands to pray over me, and just the camaraderie, the oxytocin that my body was missing on so many different levels and stages throughout my life. And they suggest that I don't know what to say. Cut down to my knees as I'm falling in that battlefield and being left here all alone. And it's as though nobody could see the real me. No, not even myself could see the real me. I mean, I can imagine it being bright and having a true love life in front of me. I can imagine me rollerblading, getting my energy back, quitting smoking, just to feel alright. But this wasn't right at all. I was never simply okay in all of my history. I was never simply okay in my body. So now, I don't feel like I'll ever be okay without a blessing being added into my life. So I decided to work really hard at it. But how do I get it? How can I ask for it? What do I even say? And who really cares to hear anything I have to say at all? Let alone hear everything that I've been through, that I've had to get through, just to be able to even say it. Even unable to speak it into reason itself. So I asked the Lord above for wisdom, because I can't see how to get out of this chaos that they left within me. Body that's giving up on me, and all crying out for a love life I feel I still deserve, but feel I will never get to. Don't feel like I'll ever get to it ever again, and it's really sad. And by the design of others, it's never truly been. It's been all made by proxy. Anytime I had anything organic, there they were, to strip me of my much need for healing. So as I'm choosing to heal, I'm stripped from even the hot water that I need to chelate within my own home. The doctors aren't helping me chelate my body from poisons. They're looking at me as though it's all just mental health. And I have just been thoroughly murdered all of my life. Not just the attempt after attempt in ways to erase me, as I was never supposed to figure out the crime against me. But they call it as though it's just karma. And from what exactly? Blackmail by poisoning from their own affairs? They forced me to undergo homelessness. So they forced me into homelessness, saying that I couldn't come and live, or saying that I could come and live with them, but they were never actually planning to help me to live with them and to make that money. They just told me that they were gonna help me and cover me and help me get that money that my last job stole from me, still being owed over $3,500 there. But they didn't intend to help me live. This was all about eradicating me thoroughly through a systemic issue in my life. The problem is that they created it through what they were doing to me. I didn't deserve this. No man would. Nobody would. But they were intending to make me look like a madman. So my words sounded like a sheer madman, crazy made by their sociopathic and gutter trash narcissism. All their proxy-made warfare, lovers, intents to steal up my life. Instead of my truth being evidence, they poisoned me up in my relationships, leaving me flat out and cleaned out of myself, where I couldn't see, even to begin to really reason through my own skills as to what had been happening to me. Poisoned up to go into homelessness and then made by craft to walk this battle all alone, forcing more people who just didn't understand, or people who just don't care. It's not a rarity out here. Love is rare. True love is rare. People that just don't care, that's not rare. So thanks, Father. Thanks, brothers. Thanks, so-called friend. And thanks, girlfriend. And past relationships by proxy. I loved you all so much. How could you even pretend? How could you have done to me what you did? My body was in constant detox. Not only was I feeling awful, emotionally, physically, even unable to look out at that normal way to others who could have maybe even had love for me one day before. But even they would just turn away. Anyone might normally be able to see me as someone worth something to be, hang with, or love. All would turn away from me. No room for explanation. Police I question, wonder if anyone is even listening or doing any real investigative work at all. And doctors? Just everybody said to care out here. Everybody that you're taught to care about real crimes happening to humanity seemingly just don't want anything to do with your story at all. The hatred that I've gotten, and for what? Just for living through what they had been doing to me? For being born? For being alive? Was there no help for me at all? They all seemed to be willing to hold the door for me, so long as the wolves in sheep's clothing was waiting on the other side for me. And they all had this charm in their faces that they needed to hide within. But as soon as they turned around to you and away from other faces, they'd be glaring at me with their sinister smiles, already having everything built in their favor. A whole house of cards that they knew exactly when to blow it over. So I would start to swear up a storm. I didn't know how to really control that. I was poisoned. And then people would just shame me as if that wasn't out of my own control. From the poisoning, let alone all of the psychological and emotional abuse I was enduring. I was being marred over and masked over as the perpetrator, while they, the predecessors of this evil, the perpetrators of a heartless crime, they were the predators over me, preying over my life. And I was just left there, to be preyed upon, and the victim of sedation. So now, it's 5 minutes left to midnight. I'll be lucky to get 9. And it'll be a blessing if I get a half hour back. But could I get the help that I needed? I wanted three hours back till midnight. 4. I can't see the normal 4 to 5 anymore. Those minutes left till midnight. Unless I earth in some real prayers here to be the breakthrough. They weren't looking at anything I was posting, nor the pictures of smiling through the storms. As though my life was just on autopilot, on repeat. And in ways I couldn't even see me myself, from me, myself, and I. No, but they were looking at the aftermath, the chronological craters of everything that they had done to me, by people who sought me out, preyed upon me, and to cross me so badly. Combat me in my data, hacking me and analyzing me, and messing me up in a straight up battle for my life. So this was an operation of warfare, with no special ops, rather just strategic warfare, and the art of war was to take me out, paint me up as the villain. So I need you to understand, this wasn't just some paranoid delusion. No. This was not about maybe being this way, the way I am. This was for sure thing that I'm mentioning. not some storytelling piece to play up a part. No, this was a crime against me of calculation. My exes that only worked by proxy to devastate me and ruin my reputation, and play up within the proxy war to study me, to engage in the art of warfare, and to ensure that they were going to get away with not only their affairs, as if they weren't psychologically messed up as they were enough to ruin me and rob me of my own truest nature and heart, but they had planned to create suicidalities out of my own inner sanctum, to create as well those craters. They ran deep inside. But as my own blood relations, a problem in my life, just to sort out the problem that they made and make a problem to go and sort of take care of itself, sort itself out, right? And so they thought to kill me by proxy of a thorough plan to oust me of my own love life, to have one be organic or originally made by me, my own accord. No, they couldn't have had that ever. So they wanted to watch me in their own guilty-driven, self-destructive ways, play up once as friends who not only betrayed my trust, but actively worked to keep me rolled straight out of my own self. I didn't do anything to them, but they made sure to delete me into total isolation and make their own devastation into that villain, but I wasn't even supposed to see, to witness it of my own self-reflection, to even see the crimes that were being taken upon me, just to be sitting there wondering, when is all of this going to be done? When my time is up? So if my time does come up, you should know it will all be because of their total takeover of my life, planned to these last ticks of that second hand. Tick, 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 tock, tick, 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 tock. Repeat. They played cold and calculated moves over my entire life, my mind, my love life, and even the love that I had had for them just washed out of me, much like my own father poisoning me up in my bottle to put me to sleep. Not only to put me to sleep, but to control me by proxy forever. All I ever did was exist. My crime was just me being alive and making it through these attacks, attack after attack, that they set and staged. They couldn't stand seeing me make it through it, psychologically profiling me, and at times I could see it and read it in their faces, till I was poisoned up again, crucified in the classical weaponry of their manuals, their manuscript, where they insisted, like my own father, to poison me up before I even learned how to walk, before I even learned how to talk. From the setups in early childhood to the ways that it was also aggressively supposed to play out in my own life, and so eagerly to dismiss me and take me out. It was to play out so well for them. Well, no more, as I have had enough of fake lovers and fake love from family, even, or anybody at all designed to break me, to betray me, to steal away my trust of something that I felt for real. No more. Also, they can run around rehearsed to bust me and break me the fuck apart. No. Where every single wound was set in the stage, set up like a cancer intended to impede inside my body, even to poison me and to break me. They wanted to play with me, play with my life, and to psychoanalyze me, to manipulate pressure points and execute for their long-term strategies. not only in my thought process and thinking, but to biologically control me as well into their own processes of my own innate ability to rationalize on my own accord. And then they play on personal levels as well to steal away from me, steal away my work, and stall up my own blessings. Things that I had been working hard on, harder than I thought anybody in the whole entire world could have worked. My own provocation of a well-regulated life to lead it to an organic, true to its own nature. So they crafted my emotional regulational score to be far off the charts, because anybody that would have been through even half or a quarter of what I had been through, their lid would have been blown off with plans a long time ago. You can read articles, you can see what happens to people for themselves. People have no clue, but people do take the law into their own hands. People have no ability to self-regulate these insane emotions and self-intermediate the pressures that have been stacked up against me or against them. They get targeted once and they fly off the handle. Where I withdraw, I drew back. I planned accordingly to execute against the warfare that they initiated, because this wasn't me. This wasn't me at all. This was all by their own doing. They didn't ever assume I'd become the warrior that I had to become because I didn't have a choice. No. They had thought this crime all the way through, nip and tuck. But they kept me from my own heart. They kept me from my own natural progression of thought creation. They kept me from my own internal values and my own breath and ability to breathe every last cell of my body as the instrument of their warfare. My own body is mine, and I claim it back if I can. If I don't die first, that is. As now that I have figured out the depth of this crime, and that it went too far into the innate ability to have a life of my own accord at all, I couldn't see the reason enough to know what to do at times. So they absolutely need me dead now. And it has opened up a Pandora's box of a full-scale war against my body and life and mind, my love life, my work life, and any other area that you could imagine it affecting. So I was done. I was done playing small with these small-minded people. They are the ones that decided to turn my love into their own crime scene, and my life and mine, down to the cellular level, into a hostage situation. And I'm sure the CIA has seen interrogators themselves with less mental discipline than that in which I've been forced to display, as anything else I could have done would have been a full-blown felony that they not only need to create, but they need to create it as well as to work up one, to create one, to get me into reactions, and use those reactions. So I've had to be patient, and not for revenge, but this was for their own art of war. So they wanted me to fly off the handle, to reach that boiling point, and to throw out my own life plate into that full-blown rage, so that they could use that rage as another way to claim up more of my own life's efforts, time, and energy, and resources. So now that I've been documenting everything, even the journal that I needed, they steal it away from me, hacked out of my own computer. So I'm ready to deploy like drum strikes of a mental band that they can't even handle hearing, a metal band that they can't stand to hear, because they took even that ability away from me. My ability to drum was on point as long as I wasn't drummed up as someone that they wanted to make me out to be. This was all by their precision to take me out of my own reasoning to see them for exactly who they were, as they took so many strikes against me to save themselves from ever being discovered. Just my waking up, just my presence was all a psychological attack against their alter egos, because they had to put it down. Not one person could live through even a quarter of what they had already done. So they started going into panic mode, desperately trying to get rid of me. Then my waking up, my surviving, my living through it caused them to go into full-blown anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and total inalienation of who they should have been, who they could have been, and who they should have been showing themselves to be. Not one person that got in their mix wanted to come up against me for real anymore. Not a one. So they have to cut me up, imitate my character, and play a full-scale smear campaign against me because they are all weak. Every last one of them. Cowards. So now, they don't even know how to approach me anymore, because of how deeply personal that they had to make it to provoke that warfare against me and my spirit. They couldn't handle me simply speaking out about the covert warfare. So now that I figured them all out, they can't handle a single part of my exposing the crime for what it was, nor for what it did to me. How they traumatized me and wrecked me to any original form of me. And from that biological warfare to the psychological torture campaigns to the spiritual war zone that they made of my whole being, they couldn't stand me. They couldn't stand to look at what they had created in me to be. The warrior I had to become. The raw, chilling, absolute necessity to speak out about it. The insidiousness, the heinous crimes that they took up. They couldn't even handle people wanting to see it for what it was. So they'd gatekeep their own. As coming up against me started to get too dangerous and too unpredictable. And the other side of the coin, the ones who still understood where real power comes from, well, they understood they wouldn't have a fighting chance after all that they had taken from me. So they saw things from another angle. They saw it as a strength that I could win wars without firing a single shot, a single blow. From their own wars of proxy to the manipulation that was all designed to break me before I could even learn how to speak, until they wanted to plan to take my life away from me and make money in the graveyard that they had created of my mind and life. And that so effortlessly they did and created by craft. I was still in the womb, mind you, being brought into a full-scale war of attack before I even drew my first breath. Before I learned how to cry my very first tears, they waged their wars and pained me so badly that the black skies were painted in blood red. My own father's crimes of rage and provocation turned into killers' hands, and not just against his own flesh and blood children, but against love itself. So I was stabilizing the entire network of truth, ready to deploy. They left signs and breadcrumbs of themselves all over the place, as full-blown demons in disguise, tearing through the blood of my mother, the blood of myself, and the blood of my sister. Full communities of whispers and hushed tones, bribed payments made to come up against me and my family. But at that time, I never once thought that the truth hidden beneath could come from my own blood-born brothers, wearing a full demonic disguise as family that cares. But remember, it's just you. It's just your things. Throw them away, right? Just as they did me so easily. So this wasn't very easy to face, as I had nothing but love in my heart for them. And yeah, even with their whole demonic ways, as I personally wanted to still perform some kind of exorcism on their hearts and souls for being so mistreated by my dad, to be brought back from the monsters' way, the devil that my father was representing, to rape his own blood-born children that way. Anybody who was me would fight like hell through this thing, because that kind of terror hit deeply, like a true violence within a storm created. Booms, boom, boom, and then the counters of people who, oddly asking specific questions, seeing to reason for themselves where my mind state was at. Or was that poison working good enough for their next full-blown scale of attack? Their evil plans to come into fruition? I was forced to think in dimensions that others didn't even have a clue existed. The frequency and the energy of God left here. You know, the flower of life and the energy that is all around us. They just have everyone paying for what is free all around us. But as I was still just being formed in my mother's womb, the terror hit deep. My father trying to threaten her ability to shine in her own talents and in her own God-given mind, and God created her to have. The intended violence that he intended for, and the suppression of me as just a seed, to the poison that I was made to feel later, inflicted upon me. The same biological torture I had to feel later in life started when I was just a newborn baby, under siege of my whole life premeditated, and a target locked in my own name. Just as I've said before, couldn't even reason through the thing itself. I'm Matthew Murden. My life before I even had a name to come back to know. So later on, for my own blood-born brothers, I had my speech delayed. My mind was held captive, and then labeled as being slow, or just broken, as though I wasn't worth a shit. Times when my own mind could think, but I couldn't breathe to reason the words to say, or to get anybody to listen through the static that they had instigated every single time I turn around to try and speak. No, they wanted to rob me of everything that was me. So those chains of terror broke me. It wasn't always my voice being suppressed, but totally collapsed. An inward holding me down, low, down, firm. So learning to talk was delayed. Just a thing in my life I had to fight for, late to my own lips, and my ability to create the utterances of many words that I needed, that at those times I still didn't know, the very words themselves, because not only did they want to silence and dismiss me and to minimize exposure, but they wanted to blur up my scripts and bury me within the scripts that I couldn't have even have written yet, let alone begin to speak. I couldn't hold my mind together. Remember, I was being poisoned. I couldn't remember things in chronological order. I couldn't keep things straight because this story was crazy made from the very beginning. Crazy making narcissism. So this wasn't about revenge. This was an art of my own personal testimony. The life that I've had to live, a complete nightmare that was created by their demonic craft. From the womb to the grave, as it was meant to be created, all psychological torture and attacks that came every hour, on the hour, that was to come with a prescription. a biological control for my realizing any power at all. The war against my soul, my body, and my mind started at conception. They tried to get me to question my own sanity within their manipulative strategies. Then carefully I was working to get them to question their own reality. And now, I'm not so sure they ever wanted to come against me in the physical form, let alone in a spiritual war zone that they enhanced with my spiritual eyes, ever being open to whom they were. But they had studied up as if my own name was the psychology, Matthewology, and they had a lot of key players in that class. The fact of the matter is that my torturers, or my tagged targeters, had been outmaneuvered, and they thought they could win the battle they performed by craft and precision. And mind you, it was at that greater length, and for the time of stance that never should have been, to play me out of my whole life. What the fuck for? Where even if they succeed in taking my life to completion, God will have the facts that even I couldn't have seen to reason with, which is exactly why I believe my grandma came to me right when she had passed. In spirit, of course. But it was to talk to my heart, talk to me in a way that I've never experienced before. I was in a bad mental refrain from things that had been being done to me, but she told me that I needed to move very carefully because there was something going on in my life that I couldn't see to understand. But it was really important to her. It was an urgent message to tell me that I was in danger. I was in danger of my life. And I was. I was in danger. I was in danger of losing my life. Not only then, but for all time. My whole ability to mind a thing, or to think things through, or have the thought process of being strategically ostracized, biologically suffocated. I was being held captive. I was being riddled out of my own head. From the moment I hit 5 years of age, those shadows only began to grow larger, longer, stranger, within the walls of every single sharp edge of even the softest forms felt like being stabbed in every single cell of my body. I was just a little kid, caught inside of a war that I couldn't have seen for what it was. But they did. They whispered in their hushed tones, regarding me in secrets, in silences, to leave me in battles that would go unseen, right? And they knew exactly how to plan it all out, to strategize to keep me silent, and even unable to think things through, or to be able to use the muscle of my own mind to reason. The pain ran deeper than words could explain. To be left within fractures of my own mind, my own body, and my own ability to reason at all. The place where they created it to be, by craft, all leaving me in a maze within my own memories, as time, in my own organic growth or glow, just slipped right through my hands, or so it seemed, like a smoke passing through a fan or a screen. Every day was just a struggle to even try to piece it all together as those memories of who they were. Just moments, or just the night before, where I could have that memory for even just a fractional of a time. I was left there in the fragments of whoever I could have been, or who I could have become, holding on to myself and my life for dear life, at times unable to breathe, and not even knowing why. It just felt like these silent screams, feeling again and again, as though I'm just being stabbed all over. The thing itself was living nightmares inside of what was happening to me in my real and actual life. Because if I couldn't see the reason with what had happened to me, how would I have been able to explain it to somebody else? to suggest that there was something being done to me. I wouldn't have been able to, because those who should have been there to protect me were the architects of something that was very confusing. So I had not only had to learn how to smile and hide my fears, I had to smile through that pain and somehow be able to speak forcefully, to be able to speak through things that I was feeling when I felt so unsafe. So when I did feel safe, I was never supposed to. I shut myself within, and in ways that I didn't even know what I was doing. What I had been doing was closing those doors to everything that I felt. So I was sick of it all. I couldn't have known what I was even closing the door to, let alone want to have to question what was the confusion, what was that frustration and the chaos that I had felt. Just being taught to obey them at their own command. And I'm sure they had fun being able to control and manipulate me, but not for long. Getting away from it, I think that they obliterated themselves in their own consciences, and my own ability to think was obliterated out of my own ability to reason, to know what to think, let alone the shape or form of the manipulation that it was set within, to be so subtle that I had nothing to compare it to, just thinking this was reality, being gaslit on repeat, but not even knowing the terms to use. Gaslighting? You'd think you'd be able to learn at least something about what was being done to you, but I didn't even know these words. What even was that to me at that age? As the lines between love and control just got blurred as my whole spirit of soundness and sound mind, and the originality just got trapped in a maze of psychological warfare. All I remember was feeling terrified, and the biological control tightened its grip, the noose around my neck, not just in the words they'd say, but the actions that they'd take. How chipped away at my stable health and clarity was it, running me right out of myself, in ways that no one could have seen. No, not anybody, not just me. Just clearly they were aiming at me to control me, to create me sick. And not only in that time, but all time. And no one seemed to care more about my personal healing than myself. And if they did, they'd been more focused on other people with other people had other big things going on in life too, but I was being scapegoated and even ostracized as the problem that they had created. Every moment of my growth was robbing me of my energy and power, as their invisible chains wrapped around me tightly, and so meticulously so that not even myself could speak it. And at times, not even myself could reason through it. And then at times, my own self couldn't even see it anymore. It was gone, out of my mind, completely erased by poisonings. So no one would have ever cared. How could they care? What exactly was there to be cared about? Just me gone crazy by crazy making narcissistic abuse that they couldn't see was playing with Warfare Avenue? Yeah, they were on Warfare Avenue alright. My heart yearned just to get away to feel peace inside, while my spirit was like a prisoner, tied up by unseen forces. But they wanted me so broken, obedient to them. So when I was in reactive states and disobedient, in a reactive state, oh yeah, they'd blame me and they'd get away with it too. Where the true me just disappeared, as though anything lashing out, anything needing that true love, anything reaching out for that love, just got dispersed into thin air. Disappeared and gone. Targeted into my own dreams of being loved. My own dream to be a drummer, a dream to mean something more, but by those who would do this to me, where they had me jilted, cursed, as my organic nature was under siege. Teachers, police, parents, or anybody at all couldn't see the warfare that I was going through. As the perpetrators turned a blind eye to that love, others couldn't even see what I was fighting for, let alone anything else besides my own self. Friends turned away from me, as everyone, including myself, was blind to that genocide of my own inner spirit and that inner sanctum within my own home. It was a sure murder of the slow erasure of a boy's identity, and my soul was eclipsed by that fight inside of me for something that I couldn't even feel. A love. A frame of reference of that love. Of that type of life that I couldn't even put a name to. So I was fighting just to be me. Scribbled in notebooks after notebooks, notes to be free from that pain. And then I'd rip out these pages and I'd go and burn them, hoping that God would be able to free me from this. Something free me from this painful place, soaked in confusion, frustration inside of a spirit that was refusing to be extinguished. Not even knowing at that time that it had truly already greatly made me just feel dead inside. All being choreographed to erase me, to steal my essence, and to kill that inner sanctum within a way that was to be left without a trace. Or even if I cried to the Lord to free me, resembling a potential suicidality that was created in my mind, that was never a suicidality. Rather, that was just my spirit, my actual spirit wanting to be free, wanting love, wanting to feel unique, to speak with the truth of any part of what it was happening to me. But it was just so confusing to be me, my own me inside. Scared to be home, scared to be in the world, scared to go anywhere where it didn't seem to care. Buried in the blurs of all that life had just done to me. So of course, now that they needed to smear campaign me, to hack my voice, to deaden me in any way that they could. But I'm still that voice. Even now. For the unheard screams in the places that I wanted to be, I only wanted to be seen. The witness now to a crime over a whole lifespan. I wanted it to be seen. Still fighting for justice from this, still fighting just to be free, still fighting for that peace, that love, that uniqueness of my own truest nature of me. And yeah, I was still fighting to heal. And again, tricked up by another fake lover, proxy life, that they wanted me so displaced in. But this wasn't for revenge. I loved them dearly. It's just that they couldn't love me anymore. Because they never did. Not after what they had already got and done to me. I just wanted to reclaim a life myself that I couldn't steal back. But I wanted to reclaim my energies. The kind that they couldn't kill. Or aim at ever again to take me out. It's my spirit that still yearns to be free. Still yearns to be the me that I always wanted to be. And I always was. It's just been so marred over that I hurt so bad. I don't know if I'll ever get to be me. But I wanted to. I wanted to be me. But they accessed me in ways that no one ever should take up. So the school that I've got a master's in was greater than any class at any Harvard college or degree. And that degree is in the betrayal, the psychological warfare certified mathematician. There is no calculation that could bestow upon someone within that skill set. I've got my own doctorate from a spiritual warfare tactic zone that was within the darkest class that anybody could have ever known. You can go ahead and try to create that class, but you know nothing about life's coldest cruelty. My mind was made into no ordinary weapon. It was an unregistered data machine, a true weapon, able to identify the patterns of behavior. And my scores were off their charts. They weren't even able to even make a real chart for it all, because they had their calculations all wrong, and they couldn't even touch the 5% that I was forced to be upon. It's a mind that has evolved from the 0-point closure that they wanted to give, like a hollow point led into the top, with many fake smiles looking down the barrel of that gun, and fake consideration from others. They thought that their patterns of abuse had me, but instead of them getting anywhere with it all, no, they didn't have me at all. I learned to take all that they gave me and to create a system built of brick and mortar, because I was unshakable and I was going to be made unbreakable. And that brick and mortar system, with all that they had tried to sling upon me, I just took each hit and I started to stack and collect the stones, the dirt, the bricks, the rubble, and I started to build a building that could withstand the pressures that they wanted to leave me within, so hard pressed. Broken down unwittingly so much that they had left me with no choice but to become a warrior that they could never be. They could never move in the ways that I've had to move. I worked harder and harder than anyone else had, and at times I realized that, but I had to move smarter and more precise and work more dangerous in that warfare that was left upon me. And they needed me bled out. So I got well rounded in their tactical and their strategic measures. And they tried to replicate who I had become, to send my own character back to me as a reprobate in their art of war. But they couldn't match what I'd do. They couldn't even come close. They couldn't clothe my spirit, nor could they even try to play pretend. They had all my data, and they used everything to try and train themselves to become me. But that sort of laboratory failed. At times that I was steadily seeing them for exactly what imposters they really were. They didn't know me. No, not even having more access to my identity than anyone else in this crime could have had. All their sedation and identity theft. They had no clue how I made it out of all of their setups, all of their attacks, and yeah, even from a younger age. So they took me for weak, because they saw themselves in their own reflection for exactly how weak they were. They knew exactly the cowards that they had become. They couldn't fight, not even with their reprobates and all of their information that they had on me. They had more of my identity in this identity theft than I believe anybody else had. So manipulative and strategizing. So I saw the psychological warfare instinctively, and they failed to see me smiling through the veil that they created for me to have to see through, or have to makeshift my own self through. So they knew they were utter failures for trying to come up against me with these real means to actually be able to fight me. They had no ability to fight me. No, they thought they had everything that they needed to take me out. Nip and tuck. I was even homeless by design, poisoned up and unable to see these signs. And yet they played those friends, and they played up in those fake proxy relationships and their cowardice brotherhood of man. And they still yet tried to poison me off to death, insisting to steal everything away from me that I was. And they do it to me too, effortlessly. And they would have gotten away with my life had I not been able to be made into that person to see through on autopilot, unable to speak for the very reasons that they were taking into my life. the wisdom that I held captive of my own self-deceit. So I just stayed in prayer, alone, and scared in the darkest hours and days of my life. Those days turned into full-blown years, almost my whole life, studying how to get out of this covert warfare over my name. And what I began to realize is that they could try to take all that I am away from me, but what I had couldn't be taught in some school of the lesser-hearted, because this wisdom was being forged by the bombs of a real heartache, not their full-on runaround of gamed-up love and their gamed-up visions. Theft, I could see clear across their faces. No, their hearts were all faked. Their love was faked. And I could read their whole book without even having it in my hands to read the preface or open up the contents, because their contents were liquidated, iridescent. And all of this knowledge was shaped by the jackhammer of real pain, and always getting back up to obtain what was left of that warfare, to continuously build what they never could. A real mission, a real network marketing campaign, not their all so clever plan to network me and my life as though it meant nothing at all. They wanted to recruit me into their whole arrangement, but their marketing was out of weakness and meanness. And it was a makeshift way to send me into a ghost mission to enable more shortcomings for me and more theft of my time, ability, and resources, because they thought so little of me that they needed to ensure that I had no resource of my own self left. And not only of my own agility of mind, but everything. Cold in the icy ways they crafted me to be in. I'm not that chill of heart. I wasn't trained as the weapon. I just had to evolve into one. Their agents had the training, but as soon as they came up against me, they got into questioning everything that they thought they knew about psychological warfare, and all of their tactics and training left to them in their own minds, unable to figure out that God was in the mix now. And they way underestimated God. They used force and strategy, while I used physics. And I was going to break out of that dam. Their force of physics to power all of the energy, it powered all that I needed. The law of physics was that all actions create an equal and opposite reaction. And I've learned to reposition myself for that reaction, to destroy my enemy's composition, to lead me into that phase untouched. The place where their strategies and tactical methods of creating madness suddenly came to an abrupt stop. Their means to create that madness only grew weaker, while I grew stronger and more capable and competent to withstand the greater pressures and forces than I knew were coming up. Because without fail, they needed to strike me again. They needed to strike again and again. So now, I was needing to prepare for it, all to be that silent, ready for their silent blows, the final draught to my life, because I could see them all clearly for the wicked hearts that they truly were. And they were truly weak, insipidous creatures. So I became devastating in my own execution, because executables were simple and beautiful, because they were just to stay alive. They were just to stay on my feet, and that was their only threat. So they treated my life as a threat.
JP. JP.